Welcome back everyone. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the iPhone 7 and see how this phone holds up in the middle of 2021. Now what I can tell you is that I think this phone is a pretty good phone overall. There's been a lot of changes to it since even the beginning of this year, and specifically starting off, as most of us know, iOS 15 has came out. And what I can tell you about this update is that I think it's a good update overall. I think it brought a lot to the table. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it's a good update. But I don't know if it's going to be its last, version of software. I hope it's not, because iOS 15 wasn't like a groundbreaking update, although it was important. It brought a lot of cool things, but I don't know. I am a little underwhelmed about it for sure. But starting off, as always, let's go and talk about the body. Obviously, this thing hasn't changed in the body since the first day it came out. Same 4.7-inch panel, front camera, Touch ID on the front, lightning port, the first iPhone to remove the, headphone jack. On the back, aluminum build, single camera setup. And that's essentially it. That's really the outside of this specific device. Now internally, Apple A10 Fusion chip, we'll get into all those things in a second, but I do think the number one change of this specific device has been the software, and this is the thing that is kind of 50-50. So the fact that the iPhone 6s actually got iOS 15 makes me think that maybe the iPhone 7 will go on and continue on one more version, but it's not a guarantee and we really don't know. If iOS 16 ends up being a massive update, then this may mean that Apple may have to go ahead and remove, the iOS 15, or they may have to remove iPhone 7 in their whole entire lineup in order to actually, maintain some sort of stability with their devices. And what I mean by that is essentially devices that have more power than not. Now, the difference in speed between a 6S and a 7, there's, a little difference for sure, but the bigger difference is between a 6S Plus and an iPhone 7 Plus with the 2 gigs of RAM versus 3 gigs of RAM. So that's a massive thing to keep in mind. I think the stability of the iPhone 7 on iOS 15 has been pretty decent. Typically, my iPhone 7s, whether you like to say it or not, whether I like to say it, it hasn't been the most stable devices when updating to betas. I've had to constantly, factory reset them and do all sorts of things with them. In this case, I haven't really had to do that since like iOS 14, so I am really happy to see that. But that doesn't mean this is still like a perfect device by any means, and I still think it has a long ways to go, but right now we are on beta 2, and I do think the iPhone 7 has been holding up in that sense fairly well, if I have to give it some credit there. Now, that pretty much covers it up in the software standpoint. Like I mentioned, the stability, it could be better, but I do think as of right now it's not that bad of a stable of a device, and I actually do like that to an extent. Now, continuing on, I do want to hit on the performance of this device. Now, this phone does have that Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it, and I do think it's a very good chipset for this specific device. And what I mean by that is the fact that, going from an A10 Fusion to an A11 Bionic, like I mentioned, there hasn't really been that crazy of a difference between these two. And I think that is a really good thing with this device in terms of at least the future ability of this device. And I do think in the middle of 2021, although it isn't the fastest performing iPhone, it's not even one of the fastest performing iPhones anymore, I think it's a good performing device for the most part. And I do think, if you're going to go and pick up this phone in 2021, I think it's a decent device. Like I mentioned, definitely not perfect, but I think for the things that this phone stood for in the beginning with, kind of revolutionizing their device landscape from going from a headphone jack iPhone to not, I think this is a decent spot for this iPhone to be. So I think that kind of covers up this specific device. Like I mentioned, it's definitely not perfect and it's probably not even worth it anymore, but I do think it's a good device right now, which is really, really important. And this is the cheapest, lowest performing iPhone I would recommend in this day and age. I wouldn't even recommend a 6S. I would recommend buying, the iPhone 7 at the bare minimum and then going from there. So that's essentially it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.